Welcome to Scanners Offline, a Drop Fleet podcast by Matt, Will, and JJ. Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Scanners Offline. Myself, Matt Purdy, Jason James, JJ, and Will Francis, we are back for another episode. And do you want to say hi, guys? Hi, Will.
Hello, it's me.
And you're not so busy on the farm at the moment?
Reasonably busy. We're in the middle of haymaking and silaging now, so I've taken a quick break to come and talk into a microphone.
Is it fun to climb on the hay, the big bales?
No, because I'm getting older now, so it hurts jumping off them.
And JJ, how are things? All good?
All good, thanks, Matt.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Busy at work, you know. Trying to fit some drop fleet in is proving challenging lately.
I've enjoyed dragging you a little bit into football. We won't go into this too much, but
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
I'm not sure it's going to go down too well on a wargaming podcast.
I've got a reputation to uphold, so move on swiftly.
This episode, just a brief summary of what we're going to talk about. We have UK Games Expo coming up on the 2nd of June. Hopefully you're listening to this before that's happened. We've got War Stories. We're going to talk about some bits from Midlands Maelstrom 2. It was a little while ago now. That was back on the 28th of April. But we've not done a summary of it yet, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about perhaps Dreadnoughts making an appearance soon. Most of the episode we're going to be focusing on the Destroyer's new rules, because we've not actually done any reviews of the Destroyers, because our previous episode we did, and we had images of the Destroyers and we guessed at the rules, and then literally 3 days after we'd made all our guesses, the actual rules came out.
And we were wrong.
Yeah, in a lot of cases we were very wrong, and all of our reviews there of what we thought they would be were almost immediately out of date. Yeah. So that was not great timing. So this time we'll do an actual review. And the Destroyer rules have been changed very recently. When did the new rules drop?
Friday, wasn't it?
It's Friday was the new release.
2 days ago, as of recording.
So 25th.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're quite. I think we're fairly hot on its heels here. The new versions of the Destroyer rules. Hopefully, these rules will be left alone for a little bit for a good amount of time for us to test it and possibly not change again, because they've got version 0.3 on them, haven't they? So this is the third experimental rule set.
Yeah.
I like that. We'll talk about it a bit more later, but I like that these Destroyer rules have taken into account some of the community feedback. I think that's a good step.
Yeah.
And should help. But yes, okay. Moving on to the news in full. The news, the bit where we talk about new goings on in the drop fleet world. On to the news. So there are a few bits of drop fleet news, not a deluge, and not nothing, but there's some little bits we can talk about.
A light shower of news.
Yes, yeah, a sprinkling of news over our drop fleet ears. So UK Games Expo is on the 2nd of June. Will, you're probably best talking about this, seeing as you are hosting an event.
Yeah, I'm running it. There are at the moment still 2 tickets available. We got our allocation increased, although nobody got told, including me. So
good work, Games Expo.
Yeah, I'm not that impressed with how Expo have handled this.
They've done a really good behind the scenes. They've done all the sort of email backwards and forwards has been really good, but it was a bit late being organised. And we were 2 weeks ago given a week to sell a load of tickets, and everyone bought all their tickets after that deadline, so we had our allocation reduced, and now it's gone back up again.
Yeah, that's a shame, because they allocated 24, didn't they, based on last year, presumably?
It was 36.
Oh my, okay.
Based on the fact that we had 2 people that could umpire.
Yeah.
So that's what they were happy to do that, and they thought we'd sell that much, and then we sold like 1 for a month, and then the last week we sold out. Confusing. So there are 2 tickets. It's 12.50 points. If you go on the UK Games Expo website, UK Games Expo, just type that to Google, take there. If you look under the events tab and then look in the miniatures section of that tab, there's a big list of all the miniatures events. It's in there. Click on that, buy a ticket. You've also got to buy an entry ticket for the expo, but that's worth it because the expo's pretty good. Yeah,
it's a fantastic wargaming event anyway. So we should point out and make clear that there are 2 tickets available right now.
2 tickets right now. they might be gone by the time this is done out.
So let's be clear, if you're listening to this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, even on to Friday,
Yeah.
before the Games Expo on the 2nd, and you are interested and you haven't committed to coming yet, the tickets may be there. Go and have a look. We'd love to sell out those last 2 to make it 14 players. If you're a Dropfleet fan listening and you're going to be at Expo anyway, but you didn't come to the tournament, please do come and find us. Find the tournament that's going on, because all 3 of us will be there. 2 of us will definitely be there. JJ may be there because he's like going out clubbing the night before or something. Yeah, am I wrong?
It's an Irish leaving do, so it's not going to be a great Saturday.
So
I'll be there in some form or another.
you're predicting a heavy night then. So
To bring coffee for JJ.
Yes, it will be required intravenously, preferably.
Please come over and say hi and see the Dropfleet going on. Other news. So a while ago we heard about a TT con in October, but I think there's been no more news on that yet.
No news, not as far as I've heard.
No, we'd love to get some insider info on that TT if you're listening. Any heads up on the event that we can help publicise.
Yeah, from a purely games point of view, I think the system is ready for everything to be gathered together, to be coalesced into a single rulebook with all of the extra bits all together, all the updates neatly done, and let's be honest, a much clearer explanation of the rules, because that's consistently been something that new players have struggled with.
Yeah.
It's like the sooner you can leave behind referencing the rulebook, the better.
I'd like to see a couple of rules tweaks, but that's probably personal preference, what I'd like to see changed. You speak to everyone and they all have different opinions.
What's that? Will you want the diamond to be made better?
No, definitely not.
Couldn't agree more.
So, I mean, it will happen eventually, but no new news on version 2 as of yet. Nice bit of news about Dreadnoughts though, Will. You tell us about this?
Yes, so rumour has it we are going to get to see the Dreadnoughts at the UK Games Expo in some form or another. Rumour is at the moment is they're just 3D models, so...
Probably only be one of them, I reckon. I don't reckon they'd show all of them.
Well, last I'd heard, Dave had done 2 of them, had almost finished one of them, and had only just sketched out some ideas. I think it's a PHR one.
The last one, okay.
But they're going to be big, is what I've heard.
So they will each be displayed in their own foot-long case, which they will fill. They will have a thrust of 1 inch and signature 35.
Well,
And all of the guns.
I have heard, which one was the American version of the UK Games Expo? I can't remember what it's called now.
Gen Con?
Yes.
US Games Expo?
Probably.
There is a game.
There's like 5 or 6, but someone asked Dave about Dreadnoughts, and the rumour was that they're going to have a lot of guns, but their signature is going to be like 24 inches.
I mean, the
So
signature on
5
battleships is
probably
already
dead.
pretty big.
Yeah, I'd like to see that changed, but that's another story entirely.
Except the Scourge Dreadnought, which will have stealth and a full cloak.
Full cloak.
Probably.
With all the guns. Yeah, great.
Some kind of mothership that creates other ships. I'm still holding out for that for Scourge. Like something which has like a big mouth on the front, and it can like launch little baby Scourge ships out. Not fighters and bombers, like it can launch frigates.
You want a carrier for your carriers?
Yeah. No, I want it to launch like fire ships, like the equivalent, like a Scourge fire ship. So you can just suicide it at other ships and detonate it immediately with a distortion bubble. That'd be awesome. It'll never happen, but it'd be brilliant.
That would not
Dave,
be
if you
awesome.
listen to this, please disregard anything Matt said.
The huge mothership that made. Oh, well, I guess the name mothership's already taken by Shaltari too.
I have a feeling that the UCM one will be like a super carrier, like a US Navy super carrier of today.
Yeah.
Because I think that's kind of where warfare is at the moment.
Well, what launch would you give a UCM supercarrier?
Cool, right. Well, New York's got what, 7?
Sorry.
7? So it'd be like 14.
You
15.
just cap out immediately.
Yeah.
Covering this ship.
I think Dreadnoughts are going to be difficult to do in competitive play at 1250. I can't see it happening, to be honest.
More likely to be set piece ships in scenarios, and I think they might encourage me to so look out for this guy, Red Warsock. I'm maybe some kind of like narrative campaign, like narrative tree campaign. So not like just a league or a tournament or something. I might go that route next, I think.
Yeah.
And if Dreadnoughts could be a part of that, as like, you know, trying to stop the development of it, or, you know, trying to cripple it in a certain scenario, things like that.
Everyone gets a Dreadnought, last person with a Dreadnought wins.
Well, that would just be pure fun anyway.
Dreadnought Battle Royale.
Yeah.
So looking forward to seeing those. I didn't know that we're going to be at Expo. That is happy news.
Yeah.
I get to take some photos. I'm sure it'll be all over Facebook.
Yeah, it's probably
when
worth
that happens.
noting that TT's stand at UK Games Expo will have all their like show only exclusives as well. So like things like the Centurion and things like that will be only available when they're at the show. That'll be at the stand and online while the show's on.
So don't miss out on buying those exclusives while Expo is on this weekend. If you're listening to us
I'm probably gonna give
before
the
then.
stand.
Right, let's talk about War Stories and think back to Maelstrom 2 for our best game experiences. War Stories, the bit where we talk about battles that we've had. On to War Stories, stories of war in the Drop Fleet universe from our expert players. And those stories are going to come from Midlands Maelstrom 2, which was the largest tournament in the UK, once again. And it has, its first version was the largest ever. Its second version, we had a few people drop out due to various reasons, but I think another time, I think when we do it again, I can still think we can hit 30 players. But 20 is still the biggest sample worldwide of tournament players, because most of the US tournaments tend to have, when I've checked, between like sort of 8 to 16 players. Just not because necessarily there's less drop fleet players, but because America's so bloody big.
Yeah,
All spread out.
it takes like days to drive from one place to another.
So yes, we're going to blow our own horn here and say that again we've hosted one of the largest tournaments, which gives us a good idea of the state of affairs in the drop fleet world. But let's talk about your guys' experience of it first. So, War Stories, you want to pick one game that really stood out as the most fun game across the day? JJ, please go first.
So I only had to pick one. That makes it tough. I had a couple of really good games. I think the highlight for me was probably shooting at a PHR battleship that I believe was a Heracles, the one with a big gun.
What list did you take first, actually, just so everyone knows? What when you say I shot, what list did you have?
So I was playing Shaltari.
Boo.
Can you just edit that out, Matt?
And your admiral was riding in a diamond.
Turns out a diamond's gun is bigger than a Heracles gun. It won the contest.
Then head to head in a...
It went head to head with the Heracles, and the Heracles did not come out well. Hit it, got 6 damage, got a crippling roll. It then got a reactor overload, which then crippled it. It then got, I think it was another reactor.
It would then have to do 2 more rolls, wouldn't it?
On
the crippling table.
So it went boom. Really big.
That's so gutting if you're a PHR player to lose it in one volley of shooting.
Sorry about that, Greg. It was just a really lucky roll for me and a really unlucky roll for him.
Yeah, I did happen to walk by at this moment, and JJ had like his smug face like plastered all over the table. Diamond
It was
as
just
well.
sat right there. I couldn't help it. So for me, that was probably the standout moment of the weekend. That was a lot of fun blowing up a battleship in like one volley. It was like sweet.
To be fair to Greg, he took that with great equanimity. He was very very gracious about that happening.
Great opponent, very sporting. I know he went on to play quite a few good players as well.
He did actually, yeah.
And so he did well. I believe it was his first tournament. So.
And are you happy with your final placing? That's a fair reflection of your day. 13th out of 20.
I would like to have been a little higher. I was kind of one letting the Shaltari team down because the other Shaltari players were like 1 and 2 or something like that. But
the Shaltari finished for the day 1st, 2nd, 12th, 13th, and 15th.
Okay, so in the middle of the second batch then, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, not too bad. I would like to have finished a little bit higher. But I had a lot of close games, so 10-10, then an 11-9 win, then an 11-9 loss. So it doesn't come any more mediocre than that.
And to show that we are completely unbiased here, your general opinion of, because we used our own tournament pack and we used our own errata as well. So do you think overall feelings, anything that, because we're open to changing it moving forward, just quick general impressions from doing that, making that jump to doing our own thing?
Yeah, I think it was pretty good. For the most part, I think it had a good effect on the game. I think that the UCM benefited quite well from it, mostly linking up the little mass drivers. I think that made a lot of their less good ships a bit better, like improving the guns on the troop ships and the Madrids and things like that. I think there was a lot of change there that kind of helped. I mean, all the changes that were to Shaltari and our experimentals made no difference to my fleet, so
fair enough.
It didn't really have much of a bearing on me. The 3 points for critical locations, I think we need to kind of maybe look at again. I think on some of the games, like the scenarios that we were playing, it made it a little bit weighted to one side, especially that last one where it was diagonal deployment zone. It ended up being kind of, I'm not going to cross that line because like it's going to hit the fan, like if that happens. And it ended up just like my opponent sitting in his side of that line and me sitting on my side until like turn 5, and then like, oh, let's cross the line, and everything died.
Yeah, I had a few people say that, to be fair. I think actually looking at it, I think the players who went first crossing the debris field actually tended to win, because they were sort of taking the fight into the opponent and maybe getting critical locations in their opponent's half. But you're right, they probably suffered more casualties in doing that.
Yeah, kill points wise. But yeah, I mean, overall it was good. I enjoyed most of the scenarios and the deployment types, especially that first one, which was the bringing your heavy groups on first. I think that's a nice inversion of the...
Yeah, that one's... I've had lots of good feedback from that one, actually.
Because it makes you have to think a lot more about how you play, because your big ships are on with no escorts. Like at the beginning, you're like,
Just to point out, so to anyone who's not heard this, part of Blitzkrieg, we designed a new deployment type, which is in turn 1 you only get battle groups that have a heavy or super heavy in the battle group.
Yeah.
And then on turn 2 you only get the battle groups that have a super heavy, a heavy, and a medium in. And then turn 3 you get everything. So it reverses the distant deployment type.
Yeah, basically.
And I was slightly worried it might give even more favour to Shaltari with Diamond arriving early.
Oh, it definitely helped me. Diamond came on turn 1, blew up a Heracles, so yeah. The Heracles was on and the Diamond won that fight, so...
Yeah, but overall, most people seem to like that one, just the different tactics. Will, favourite game?
It's hard. I think all 3 of my games were very, very enjoyable. Probably the game against George, so my first game. So the first game was against George McStucker. Basically because everything exploded whenever it could. It was every time we rolled that, does your ship blow up, came up with a 6, distance, came up with a 6. I mean, I came off worse because of it, because I lost all of my Corvettes to a Seattle exploding and a lot of hull points off my Beijing.
Yeah, that's gutting, isn't it?
Yeah. I was holding that flank right up until that point, and then it was suddenly, there's an Avalon behind me. Luckily, I had some bad dice, and then George had some bad dice, so my Beijing was able to live and then kill the Avalon, which was fun.
Yeah.
And it was also fun because I took a Beijing and it actually did stuff. It did stuff in every game as well, which was weird.
So flying the flag for the UCM battleships not being that bad.
Yeah, but in every friendly game they seem to fail to do anything. So I don't know.
Need a little flag like attached to your Beijing which says like, I'm all right.
Yeah. Use me. See what happens.
Satisfactory.
Yeah.
3 out of 5.
Yeah.
Rated okay.
I had fun. I took a bit of an unusual list as well. Because if anyone remembers, was it the previous one we talked about? I had a practice game and I took 3 troop ships and I had fun. I thought I could take it. But I also took a load of Corvettes and I realised that's too much in drop. So I decided to keep the Corvettes and only take 3 strike carriers.
Ironically, having talked to many times about spamming,
Yeah.
Will was one of the most spammy players at Midlands Maelstrom too.
Well, I took
With
12 Corvettes.
12 Corvettes.
But, you know,
Dirty Corvette spammer, you.
the problem is I never fought anyone with loads of strike carriers. Like, I'd eliminated all of the strike carriers on the board by turn 2 most of the time.
And then the Corvettes were like,
And the Corvettes couldn't do anything.
What do we do now?
Yeah. I just didn't have rolls to get through to do any damage to any cruisers with them. Couldn't roll any 6s. Stupid dice.
Yeah, you deserve that. Only 12. But overall, we enjoyed the day? Good
Yeah,
tournament?
it was a lot of fun. My personal feelings on the changes is I think 3 points might be a bit too much for critical locations. Just because it seems to have made everyone took as little drop as they possibly could and was all about the space game, which does give an advantage to Shaltari and Scourge players because
It was
they
fun
had the slightly better
because it
ships.
meant everyone was fighting spaceships.
Fun.
Yeah.
And faster, because there were less ground combats on everyone's
Which is the
tables.
slowest part of the game.
Well, there were less ground combats for me because I specifically avoided dropping where anybody else could drop because, you know, I've only got 3 strike carriers.
Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, maybe 3 points for critical locations. It's fun, it's faster, not necessarily fair.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I enjoyed the day. It was fun to TO. It was good to see a few new players there too, as well as seeing all the regular, what I consider now to be the Drop Fleet tournament veterans.
Yeah.
There's a group of players who've all, just to name and try and make them more famous, like you will, really, you've been at almost every tournament. And George McStocker and Adam Cox, good to see them there. They're tournament regulars.
Obviously missing one of the regular faces, Chris. He wasn't well enough to attend.
Yes, Chris Slobodzinski has attended every Drop Fleet tournament apart from MM2. And Charlie Hamilton came and defended his crown, rightfully so. Again, really well played use of... You can bring a Shaltari list, but you still have to wield it correctly. And he played several difficult players and still, came out on top. So fair play, he's a worthy winner.
Yeah, I think the strength of schedule adaptation definitely helped kind of balance the tournament out a bit. And like doing the seeding at the beginning where you put all the experienced tournament players together in a pool.
Yep.
And then depending on who you played and who you beat, you get a bonus. So if you played better players, you get a bonus for doing that.
I'm satisfied with all those tweaks and I would keep them. We talked about maybe strength of schedule could be 2 points per win per opponent perhaps.
Yeah, all there being win, loss, draw. So if your opponent
draws you still get something.
Games, you still get something from it.
Ironically, there were lots of draws because I played around with the tournament point boundary, so there were more draws, especially in the first game. It went really well. And look out for Maelstrom 3. The first mention of this.
Sometime in the future.
I'm happy to aim for October again, because it was October last year, and by then we'll all feel ready for it again.
That might clash with TTCon though.
That is true. So we will wait and see what TTCon does. That's fair enough. Right, let's move on and talk about destroyers, because that is the main thrust of this episode, and we've got 13 of them to go through and review in rapid fire succession and plant our Scanners Offline rating stamp on them as well. Certified Scanners Offline. Fleet Academy, the bit where we talk about ship tactics and ship rules. Okay, into Fleet Academy, and we are focusing on the destroyers exclusively. We are going to rattle through all 13 of them. Why did I say 3?
Well, there's three of each.
All 3 of each faction / PHR, which have 4 for each. 13 destroyers to get through. There have been some tweaks. We're just going to talk very briefly about our overall impressions and give them a Scanners Offline rating out of 5. 5 being that you should take it into every list. 4 being that it's a solid performer and it will do its job and it's definitely worth it. 3 being it's pretty good, it's okay, but you could live without it. 2 being it's a poor choice, just take it for fluffy games where you don't care that you're going to lose. And 1 being do not build this ever. All clear?
Yep.
Right. Okay, starting with UCM. The Vancouver. Vancouver is the launch destroyer. It's got the 4-up armour. It's got 2 fighters and bombers launch. It has changed. It's had a little bit of a points drop, and you can take one of them if you wanted to. Its groups has changed. What do we think? Overall impressions?
I personally like it. I can see where some people would use it, just to boost up your launch a little bit for cheap.
UCM player?
I'm too big a fan of the Seattle, to be honest. I'd rather have Seattle in my list because they have more teeth, more guns. I think if you're going for launch rather than kind of all comers, the Vancouver's better because you could have 3 of those for a similar points cost as a Seattle, and you'd end up with 6 launch rather than 3.
How about blending them together? Seattle, Vancouver, Vancouver. Then you'd have 7 launch, Seattle's guns to protect the group, and it's only a tonnage 9 group, so it fits in under the SR10 activations.
Or you could take 3 in New York to max out your launch.
That's actually not a bad shout, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think that would work quite well.
I think that's probably what they're designed for.
However, would that go over the third of points?
You might have to separate them into 2 battles.
165 added to the New York's 200 and what? 260? 250?
Can't remember. Don't play UCM enough. I only know how much
150. That'd be about 400. You might just squeak it under, maybe, under the third of points. So overall, I think that's solid. I think there's nothing particularly wrong with that. 55 points drop to, that's reasonable. Scans offline rating, what would you give it?
3.5.
Yeah, 3.5 sounds good to me.
3.5. Done. Okay, so we can give that a mild stamp of approval.
Yeah, it's a good ship.
The Havana. The Havana has had lots of discussion around it. It's the torpedo one. It also has the lighter armour and faster thrust. And it got a little bump to its close action, D6 plus 2, as a standard cruiser close action. No, that's slightly better than the standard UCM cruiser. That's like a standard Scourge cruiser. It's changed to being rare. Not that I think that will matter at all, because you can still take 6 of them. And it's the main change is the torpedo isn't a special light torpedo anymore. It's just a regular torpedo, but you only get 1.
I like that change. I think it gives it more teeth in one shot. I would take them. I like the close action for when after it's used its torpedo as well. So it's
it's got decent close action. And 50 points. That seems all right. That's reasonable.
Yeah.
If I took 3 of those for 150 points, pile all 3 torpedoes into a battleship or the battle cruiser of the enemy, you're going to get a critical out of one of those, surely, and then use them as a Type A group, basically. Okay, JJ is just letting us know that you cannot put a New York with 3 Vancouvers. You do go over the points limit, but you can put it with 2. Okay. Thank you for that, Chief Researcher.
36% of your maximum fleet points.
UCM player, would you take the Havana with the regular torpedoes and better close action?
I think it's a good ship. I think it's better than the Vancouver. I'd give it a 4 out of 5 personally, rather than 3.5.
You think it's more useful than the Vancouver?
Because it's got more teeth. I think it's more flexible, more functional. Personally, I'm not a fan of torpedoes in the game across the board. So I don't really use torpedoes, and therefore I wouldn't take it. But I think it's a better ship than the Vancouver still.
Interesting. Will, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I can see how some people would use this as well as a way of having a different list from all the other. So you could take a load of these to launch loads of torpedoes. So it's a new way of playing UCM, which I really like.
Because they're a bit nippy, it's kind of a case of you can get into that torpedo range a bit faster.
Yeah.
So you can kind of get in, launch torpedo, and then kind of either close action things or stand off, run away.
You've got to be thinking, what's this competing with in the UCM list for slot?
The Kiev, which is the next destroyer, as well as strike carriers, and the close action frigate.
Type A's?
Yeah, Type A.
Might compete with Type A because it's light class, isn't it? So it competes for light slots.
Yeah.
So it's Type A is its main opposition, I suppose, to get in the list. And actually, it kind of does the job of a Type A.
Yeah.
But on that respect, you probably would take them over Type A's. With 3 of them would it wouldn't be as fast activating, but they'd punch hard with the torpedoes.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fair trade-off, depending on the tactics you want. So a useful addition to the UCM list.
It adds a new set of tactics, basically, which I really like.
It's only 11 points more than a Type A.
Yeah. I think we can rate that 4 out of 5. Yeah, okay. I'm happy to rate that 4. 4 out of 5 scans offline stamp of approval. So we say that is a solid performer and it's definitely worth it. It expands the tactics for UCM and brings torpedoes into the game even more.
Yes.
The Kiev. It is the heavy destroyer. It has heavier armor at 3 up, and it is slower at thrust 8. You can only take 2 of them, not 3. And its points have gone up to 65 points. And it has the rather infamous, by this point, the UF 9000 twin mass drivers, which are as big an armament apparently as are on Dreadnoughts. It's a heavier weapon class than even the battleships. So the weapon system hasn't changed. The only change is it's gone up in points. It just smashes really hard into atmosphere, or if you go weapons free, you get Fusillade 1, you get an extra shot. Overall, still good value for points.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a great ship.
that atmospheric rule is a game changer, because it means if someone's on a major spike with their strike carrier, that actually makes a difference now, even in atmosphere.
Yeah,
which is huge.
so we're all going to have to track our spikes in atmosphere now.
Yeah, that's the only problem. It's gonna slow the game down a little bit more if the opponent has one of those.
Not for long though, if it's going to kill all the things in atmosphere, so it won't last long.
Yeah, I can see pretty much everyone putting one of these in their list. Just because it changes your tactics, and it's a really good ship and it does something different.
Incredible ship.
Yeah,
it's very good. Because not only does it hammer strike carriers, it also can be brilliant at destroying cruisers.
It's going to hunt Scourge atmosphere hiding frigates as well.
Well as it could punch a Basilisk card in the face as well. If 2 of them fire together, weapons free. Yeah, they'll put up 6. They'll put out 6 3-up shots that are each damage 2. That's almost the Basilisk's own firepower back at it, for the cost of 130 points.
Good.
So that
Stupid Basilisk.
that is significant. And it's got heavier armour, so it's more likely to survive the repercussions.
Yeah. Basically, it's not really a destroyer, it's a light cruiser.
Do we all agree really on a 5 out of 5 rating for Scars of Flying?
Yeah.
We expect and predict that most UCM lists will have Kievs if people have bought destroyers. It's a very powerful ship. Good. So the UCM have I think they've come out pretty well out of the destroyers, and even with the tweaks, that's still good news for them.
Also decent.
Scourge ones. So we have the Succubus. It's 55 points. That's fairly cheap. It has quite a complicated change to this one. So it's the one that has the regular scald weapons. So it has some sort of regular ocular beam weapons. They've added an atmospheric weapon to it. So if it doesn't fire its own close action, which is okay, D3 plus 2, 3-ups, scald, it can instead fire 3 3-up shots that have atmospheric.
This is the Harry Potter weapon, yeah?
The Seekers, yeah. Yes, it fires lots of Harry Potters down into atmosphere, and they go seeking.
Okay, that sounds fine.
After the snitch-like strike carriers. So I think this is very good. I like that change as a Scourge player. It's nice. They've given us some atmospheric. Hooray! Because if UCM got it, why shouldn't we have it too? Especially because our strike carriers are the weakest of any faction strike carriers. So I think that's great. That the Succubus was not really that great before. Giving it atmospheric gives it an actual purpose. I like that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure how I feel about the cloaking crest though, because I feel that's an upgrade that everyone's going to put on, because it's only 5 points. Stealth and partial cloak are very, very good.
Yeah, I've glued mine on the assumption that I will never not want to have that crest and stealth.
I feel like it should be more expensive just to make it not an auto take on every ship. But that's my personal
So it's
opinion.
like a 10-point upgrade rather than a 5.
So think of it really as
choice.
think of it as a 60-point ship, because everyone's going to take that stealth and partial cloak.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to.
Unless you've got this amazing list for it and you're 5 points.
Oh no! I have to drop the cloaks. All right, hammer them off. Smash those cloaks off. So a cloaked seeker.
Yeah.
It's definitely Harry Potter, that one is. With his invisibility cloak. So I would rate that a solid 4 now. We agree?
Yeah, I mean, I play against Scourge, but I don't play them, so...
Yeah, it's difficult for me to say, because I don't really play Scourge, but it's a solid ship, so...
I would say 4 for the Succubus. I think with atmospheric, before that, I would say it was maybe a 2.5 or a 3. Not that great. Moving on. The Incubus was the standout ship of the destroyers for Scourge before, because it mounted the standard Scourge burn through but obviously you could take like 3 of them at once.
And have the potential to kill a battleship in one shot.
Yeah, the Scourge burn-throughs are a bit rubbish anyway, but like usually there'd just be 1 of them. But when you've got 3 of them, you do increase your chances of doing more damage, so they became worth it.
Well, you say they're rubbish. I've only ever faced people using them twice, and the 2 times I've faced them, they've done 8 damage in one shot.
I think that's extraordinarily lucky, because the more often than not that I've used them, like an Ifrit or something, it rolls those 4 dice, you get maybe like 2 hits, and that's it, and then you roll 2 hits again, and you get a crit and a miss, and then you miss, and that's it. That tends to be what always happens with my ones. But they've obviously listened to player feedback here, and they've changed it. It's no longer a furnace cannon, it's a furnace blaster instead. And it's changed from attack 4 to attack 3, and it's gone from burn through 8 down to burn through 6, and the mini version with flash has dropped from cap 4 to cap 2. That may... I feel like that might stop anyone taking them now. I don't think I would gamble on that anymore. Like, if they were good, I don't know I'd bother taking those. What do you think?
Depends what you want from them.
Okay, just say purely damage. If I take 3 of them, and they're going to throw 3 4-ups with the cap 6, three times at a target.
Yeah. I mean, you have the potential to do 6 damage, which is...
on each of them.
Yeah.
I just don't think you'll ever make it with 3 dice and 4-ups. I'd have to math it out, but my gut feeling is that is not going to be worth a gamble a lot of the time.
They've also got flash if you've got the other one, which is... or you're pretty much always going to be giving out a light minus spike, because you're hitting on 2s, so you're always going to get that one hit.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think they might have that potential there with a flash weapon.
I've never
make it worth it.
Again, as a long-term Scourge player, the alternate fire mode. When I first started Scourge, I thought, yeah, that seems useful.
Yeah.
In reality, if you're that close to an opponent, probably the rest of the fleet isn't far behind you. And also, if you can hit a target, you might as well kill it rather than light it up. So it's never been worth it.
If you've got a battleship, I can see them working very... I know the Scourge battleship isn't very good, but it does put out a lot of firepower. It's just getting that firepower on target, because it's so slow for Scourge. I can see you using them to flash something up and then your battleship just killing something.
Maybe. Yeah. My gut feeling, they've gone from a 4.5 ship. I think this has now dropped down. I know they haven't tweaked much, but still. Making it 3 dice instead of 4 and cap 6. My gut feeling is like I'd rate that like 3. Like, it's still solid, but it's not. You could choose other things. I think most Scourge players will choose other things. I would rather take the reliable destructive power of Jin, because that's their main competition.
That's true.
I would take Jin.
I've always felt Jin are a little bit too good for their points. But...
no one else seems to have noticed that or changed it, so yeah, I'm happy that hasn't happened.
It's because they're very easy to kill, but they always kill something. Should we go on to the next ship?
Yeah, Revenants. This is the launch one. It has had no changes, so it has launch 1, but it has a Jin's close action attack, interestingly. It's got D6 plus 2 scald on its close action. It's reasonably fast at 10 inches, and it's got 4 armor. It's not very durable, but then you wouldn't expect a Scourge Destroyer to be.
This is the little bit of everything ship, isn't it?
It is a little bit of everything ship. It has an ocular array, it has plasma as a backup to its fighter bombers. Ooh, I've actually, this is the one version that I've actually tested on the tabletop.
What did you think?
It was very mediocre, because compared to the Hydra's launch 5, it didn't actually add too much. Just having 1 launch each didn't change that much.
Yeah, I think the Hydra is probably a little bit too good again. There's a lot of Scourge ships which I feel like are a little bit too good.
They haven't. This competition isn't strong enough to knock them out.
Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, would you feel threatened facing that, JJ? My idea when I took them was that I took 3 of them with a Hydra, so that's a launch 8 group, and then I was going to have those peel off and attack as Jin, basically, when things got close, which seemed like a sound tactic, but then in reality it didn't work that well.
I don't know. I feel like they require different tactics from the Jin. Like that plasma storm makes you think they should activate like Jin, go first, kill something. Whereas actually, because they've got fighters and bombers on them, they want to go last, kill something, and then be able to launch the bombers after without dying.
If you attach them to a Hydra, then they're slow activating. Cause that's like the group was 8, so they weren't going to dive in there with close action. They were okay. They're not game changing. I think you may see some players using them. I don't think you'll see them in every list. No way.
I feel like the Scourge destroyers just aren't on the same sort of level as the UCM ones, because the 3 UCM ones I could see use cases for all 3.
Yeah.
Because the Scourge ones, I think I'd only take the first one. What was the first one called?
The Succubus, because of atmospheric.
Yeah, that's the only one.
I think the competition's a bit fiercer for Scourge, isn't it? For those light slots and the launch slots.
It's got very established, solid units in the light. So I rate the Revenant also as 3.
It's not like if you put that destroyer into UCM, everyone would take it in UCM, but because it's got better ships to compete against,
I don't think it's going to see that much use.
It's not going to see use. So you'd either take a Hydra or you take Jin instead.
Moving on to PHR. So we have the 4 ships to get through in PHR, and slightly complicated because they all share similar. I always mix them up. They're not standing out to me individually yet.
Yeah, I think it's the names.
And also they share components.
Some of them have got great names now, you know.
What? Oh, Ariadne. Do you like that name? That
it's
one.
alright, but it's no Jason.
I like the Electra. That's a nice name.
Just makes me think of Daredevil.
Daredevil, yeah. That's the only reason I can remember it.
So the Electra, basically the PHR ships, there's been no changes except to the Jason. So we'll very quickly go through. The Electra, to summarise, is heavy guns, and that's it. It's the heavy gun one. Yeah. So it's got all the heavy guns. It's slower, lots of big 3 up to hit, attack 2 guns.
Good hunter for heavy cruisers and battle cruisers.
So it's importantly, it has caliber heavy and super heavy.
Yeah, it brings something new to PHR because they don't have a lot of forward-facing guns unless you spam Belletrons.
Don't know why you do that.
Who'd do that?
So it adds something new to people who don't want to bring Belletrons to have that nice forward firepower.
Yeah, front facing for PHR, to be fair.
Yeah,
that's
and
useful.
It's reasonably fast, reasonably tough. I'd take it. But if I wanted heavy calibers, I'd probably take the Achilles. But that's just me. I like the Achilles.
You've got to go weapons free to put out 4 3-up dice.
Yeah, which is its only real flaw. But if you're firing against, if someone brings a battleship, that's a good way of removing a battleship.
If you got 3 of them, though.
Yeah, that's expensive still. Yeah. It's expensive.
It's
195 point unit then. 195 points, I can take 4 Jin, and they'll also do the same. So I think more reliably than that. What's it competing with? Really light slot. So
Europa's probably the only similar sort of thing. And they're a totally different ship with totally different tactics.
Calypso's totally different.
So it adds something new to PHR.
It does,
which I like, because there's nothing really competing with it.
So. Yeah, it gives you a light option that can deal with heavy targets.
Well, it gives you forward firepower.
3.5?
Yeah.
Do you think it's better than that? 4?
I'd lean to. I'm not a PHR player, but I like it. I think it fills a slot that isn't pre-filled. So, whereas in Scourge, they're competing against a lot of good options. In PHR, I think everything's got a very defined role. And I don't think there is anything on the light slot that can do what that does currently.
No, definitely not.
I would lean more towards like 3.9.
Okay, I'm doing halves.
I'm not going getting towards 4s.
I'm not going to do.
But I'm not a PHR player, as the two of you are, so you guys have probably got a much better read on it than I have.
It's just the point sync is the only thing that makes me hesitate.
So if it was a bit
4.
cheaper, maybe it would be a 4 then.
If it was 60 points, I would say it would be 4. 65 makes 3 of them at nearly 200 points.
It's 3 of 180 at 60 points.
And then you're committing to that as being your firepower.
Yeah, which it's got a lower signature, so it might be worth it. But the reason I play PHR is because I like broadside ships, so it doesn't.
Be good at killing diamonds because it's got a low sig.
Right, yeah. we will go. I will do you a 3.75. Okay.
Done.
Because we can't agree. Ariadne, it's 65 points also. It has one of those twin heavy calibers. It's slower, thrust 8, but with 3-up armour.
Same thrust. The other one's Thrust 8 as well.
I mean, it's one of the slower versions of the destroyers. Yeah, it's another slow one. And it has a bulk lander, so it can drop 3 men, or it could drop a single defense battery if you've already got some men to man it.
Yeah.
This one I think is going to slip under the radar slightly. I think in the light of the Odysseus, I think it will
I think
get
it'd be
lost.
useful as a troop ship replacement for holding a backfield objective and maybe firing its gun at something.
But you'd never take 2.
But you could do that with a strike carrier.
It's group 1 to 2. You could take 1.
Yeah.
You could drop 1 in there. So actually, I mean, filling a light slot, you could go something like one Orpheus, 1 Ariadne, and have the Ariadne hang back a bit.
Yeah.
And sort of drop on.
The thing I thought of is if you want to put all of your bulk landers in one thing, but you don't want to actually take troop ships, you could take an Ariadne and 2 Odysseus, and then the Odysseus have to stay together, and that can go off on its own.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I thought of as being a bit of an unusual tactic to try with that.
It's okay. I think I need to play with it to see its uses. It's tricky to make a judgment right now on the Ariadne. I'm not sure. And it has some guns, which is all right, front-facing guns. 1 bulk lander. I think it will depend heavily on what battle group you put it in.
Yeah.
Changes its role significantly.
It's a multi-role ship, which is what PHR
Typical
do.
of PHR.
Makes it very difficult sometimes to see what you have to do with it, and then when you figure it out, it just slots into place.
3 for now?
Yeah, I'd say a 3.
3. It's pretty good, but it could live without it.
Yeah, you don't have to take it.
The Jason.
What a brilliant ship.
Are you going for a 5 rating? 5.5? Everyone should have it?
I think based purely on the name alone, it should be a 5.
This is the only PHR ship to have any changes, and it goes up from D3+1 to D3+3 on its close action, as well as having the twin heavy caliber. Oh, and the Jason's the one that's got atmospheric. That's its main purpose, though?
Yeah, I think that's why they've increased the number of attacks, because people are complaining it couldn't kill a strike carrier in one go.
If one of them can't kill 1 strike carrier, it's not doing its job.
Yeah.
D3+3 means that you have 3 to 5 shots into atmosphere hitting on 3s.
The thing that confuses me about this ship is that it's very clearly designed to be a strike carrier killer.
Yep.
In atmosphere, but it's got a heavy and super heavy caliber gun.
Yeah.
It's really like confused about its identity. Like, give it a light caliber gun. Like, if it's going to shoot strike carriers, give it light caliber, not heavy.
But then that won't work through atmosphere.
Yeah, and
you have to give it atmospheric for that weapon as well.
Heavy caliber is better than the light caliber because it's going to be critting on 4s.
It's that multi-role thing again, isn't it? So it's if you've killed strike carriers in your area, in your hood, and you're done, you can at least start to chip away at big ships.
Well, it's the destroyer version of the Echo, because the Echo's got the same thing. It's got a gun on it that it doesn't really need half the time because it's in atmosphere and it's hitting on 6s, and then it's got close action that's not that good against.
It's always so confusing. It doesn't have a clear role.
So this point out that Jason is fast too. It's thrust 12.
Yeah.
It's got slightly less hull and it's got worse armor. So that's a significant change for the PHR to have an armor 4-up ship. And so it's meant to dive in there quickly, nuke some strike carriers, and then presumably carry on that fast run, curve around, and start attacking heavy cruisers, capital ships.
Or to do it both at the same time.
And if it can now kill strike carriers more effectively, I think that's made it much better.
Yeah. I like it because it's fast, and PHR don't have that many fast ships.
2 of them in an SR4 group would activate quickly.
Yeah.
Could snip out 2 strike carriers in a turn, you'd hope.
To be fair, they don't need to beat strike carriers to atmosphere, so you could
just wait for them to go down there. Yeah.
You could just take 3 and just hover.
I think that's good. I didn't see a downside to that. I mean, again, price slightly, but
that's the PHR problem. Everything's expensive.
4?
Yeah, I give it a 4. It's definitely worth taking in your list.
4 out of 5.
You could build a list around it if you wanted to.
The Odysseus is 80 points. It's a Corellian corvette. It's a blockade runner, and it is
way too expensive.
Captained by Princess Leia, and it has a bulk lander, launch 1.
Comes with escape pods and droids.
Yep. I think you do have to attach R2-D2 separately. He doesn't come with it. It is vulnerable to being boarded by Darth Vader.
Being boarded by Star Destroyers.
Yeah.
Downside, it can fit inside an Imperial class Star Destroyer, like right inside it. Yeah, that's a definite downside. Even though the models don't fit together in Armada, you cannot fit a Corellian Corvette up inside an Imperial Star Destroyer. So I'm disappointed that didn't scale properly. Where am I? Are we talking about Star Wars? That was the point of this, right?
Yeah. We've changed the podcast now to Star Wars.
I love Armada. Okay, moving back to what we should be talking about. It has one bulk lander. It's a fast bulk lander, so it can go 12 inches and throw down 3 men at the end of that.
Which is amazing.
And it has okay close action. So it's not going to be something that you use to fight anything, but it is going to be a first point of attack. Like, I can easily see that being used, I think you agree, Will, if you use 2 of them, you can put down 3 men and a defence battery right in front of where your opponent's troop ships are going.
Yeah, and for only 30 more points than one of our current troop ships.
Current...
Because the current troop ships...
Strike carriers.
No, if you want to put a troop ship down, which is 2 bolt landers, it's 130 points. They're 160 points for 2 of them, which is 2 bolt landers as well. And faster, less survivable.
They're more vulnerable. In fact, I think they may be quite vulnerable. You only need to do 3 damage to them to cripple them.
But they've only got a signature of 2. Which,
that's mental. Sig 2. So's Jason.
The major problem with troop ships is they get pinged up and then you get shot by everything.
That's it, it's only got 4+ armour.
Yeah.
I still think these will be really popular. Because on the approach, they're almost invisible.
Yeah.
Sig 2.
You've got like an 18-inch launch range because you can move 12 and then drop 6.
You never need to go max thrust.
It's going to be very I think that it's really very hard to stop your opponent sending Odysseus and doing what he wants with Odysseus.
Always going to get 1 drop unless your opponent makes a big mistake or you do something amazing.
I think its only downside is its vulnerability and the fact it has very little offensive weaponry. So I would say that stands out as a 4.5 to me.
Yeah.
It's also rare, we should point out, so you can't have more than 2 groups of them.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take at least a pair in my fleet and replace a troop ship with them.
So we rate the Odysseus best, Jason second best, Electra...
Second best?
Jason second best. Yes, Jason second best.
Yeah.
Jason second best, nobody.
Electra third, the Ariadne fourth. The Shaltari, let's move on, because we're doing pretty well for time, but it's taking a little longer than we planned. Let's do the last faction. So, starting with the Chromium, because it's first in the list, it has lost Flash. Apart from that, nothing has changed. This is the Scourge Burn Through Destroyer. So it's the first Shaltari ship to get a Burn Through, basically, I believe. It's still capped at 3, it's still 2s to hit, out of its front narrow, as well as having disruptor beams and a harpoon volley. It's fast, and it's lightly armoured, which is exactly what you'd expect from a Shaltari destroyer. Not too subtle, this one. Yeah, little ship, big gun. So 3 of them together could put out quite a lot of reliable hits, hit on 2s.
Yeah, pretty reliable, 9 damage. It's a shame about losing Flash.
I think most Shaltari players would have used them for Flash, I would say.
I think Flash is probably a bit too powerful with the
just don't really need it either.
12-inch scan of Shaltari.
So I agree with the drop of Flash. I judge them to be okay, but will probably get lost to other choices. So I think like 3.
Yeah, they're eating into your gate allocation being light, aren't they? Which is the general problem Shaltari have.
JJ, 3 out of 5 now that Flash is lost?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the destroyers for the Shaltari are going to struggle with the whole using up one of your gate allocation.
They're all light, yeah. Or they're competing with the Topaz.
Yeah.
Which people like to take, so that's... I think a lot of people would rather have the Topaz.
Yeah.
The Mercury, so that has had significant changes. It's lost its harpoon volley entirely. It has changed from Mauler 4 to Mauler 6. Let me remind ourselves and listeners of Mauler rules. I believe I'm right in thinking you hit on the armor value of your opponent, and otherwise it's a burn through, basically.
Close action burn through.
It's a close. That's it. Yeah, sorry. It's a close action burn through.
Yeah.
That hits on the value of your opponent's armor. So it's capped at 6. That's not bad. That makes it a very specialised heavy armor hunter.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Mauler myself because armor costs you so much points in this game and is not very useful because crits are so good.
It's going to be good against Centurions.
Yeah, I feel like something that
very
makes
good.
armour worse is probably not a good thing. But as for the actual ship, I don't know. Don't play Shatari enough.
What do you think,
I guess
JJ?
so.
Would you take a Mercury?
If I felt like there was a strong possibility of playing UCM or PHR 3-up armour or seeing Centurions, I think if I thought there was a fair probability of that, then yeah. I think it'd be a decent ship. I think it's better than the other one.
Yeah,
More of a roll.
It does. I mean, you've got to get up close. Shatari don't like getting up close, so you've got to expose them.
12 inches is not close though, really. For everyone else, that's engagement rate. That's like...
It's max gain for UCM, it's like max engagement rate.
Yeah, that's a good point, I suppose.
But
I think that's stronger than the Chromium, and I would say, I think for damage output, that's going to be significant. You're rarely going to you're going to pick your target, so you're hitting on 3s with 3
really
dice.
Against Scourge.
That makes it better than a Berlin burn through.
yeah.
If you're playing, basically, it's not going to be. Yeah, you're right. It's not going to be as good against Scourge, but it's going to be good against PHR and. Normally it'd be very good against other Shatari.
Yeah,
not if each other
terrible
often.
against other Shatari.
So maybe just on that benefit, that sort of on that side of it, that would be good against PHR and UCM, but not the other two factions.
Yeah, so it's good
3.5 or 4. Still 4 for the pure damage output.
Like if I was playing PHR or UCM, or there was definitely Centurions in it, it would be like a 4.5.
Yeah.
But if I was going to a tournament where there was going to be 40 players, 10 of each faction, then it would be like 3.25.
So you don't know, do you? So it's in the middle. 4.
It's not really. It's quite dedicated.
A solid performer, worth what it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't sound convinced. Maybe 3.75, just because it's competing with other things and it's situational.
I think I'd give it a 4.
Okay, sure. Decision made by Mr. Jason. Right, Cobalt, last one. This is the Mothership one. This one came in for the most flack from Drop Fleet players, more than any other. I believe I put a poll up on Facebook, and of the 150 people who looked at that poll and voted, I think one person said the Cobalt was their favourite. So that's pretty damning evidence, to be honest, from the community. The only change they've made is it's quite big. They've dropped the points by 10 points down to 45.
Yeah, so it went from a 1 out of 5 to a 2 out of 5.
So still not being taken in your book then, JJ. So it's
still better.
Mothership's clocking at 33 points per gate.
And to be fair, I don't think it's the fault of the Cobalt. I think it's the fault of the Mothership being too cheap for what it is. Motherships are really good. I think they're too good, which makes this really pointless. It's not any issue with this. I think the ship is actually alright. But I think motherships are too much better than that.
Yeah, because you could literally just bring a fleet of motherships and you'd have enough firepower to win, which I think is the problem with the mothership. Their gun shouldn't be as good as it is.
I mean, this has 2 3-up shots, and you're probably going to take 2 of them maybe together. So that's 4 3-ups. That's okay.
It's got better guns than the mothership, because if you took 3 of those, you'd have 6 3-up shots.
I don't know, I think 4 6-ups is better than 2 3-ups.
Depends what you're using it for.
Oh, you mean points equal, yeah.
Because if you're using it as a mothership, you don't really want it to be firing anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not narrow arc, so it can fly in a slightly different direction.
Yeah.
But the reason the mothership is so good is if someone blows up all your gates, you've got a combat ship now.
Yeah.
That's what I find really annoying.
Whereas the Cobalt, you've got quite an average ship.
You've got
a topaz basically.
Somebody blows up all your gates, you just got an average combat ship.
You gained 1 topaz out of it.
Which will die as soon as it gets into shooting range.
Yeah, never mind the fragility of hull 5.
Yeah,
and 5-up armour.
Also, if we're bringing in aesthetics into the rating, I think it looks kind of silly, but that's my personal opinion. Obviously, you could get 100 people in a room and get 100 different opinions of the aesthetics, but
it's Hypnodisc.
It is Hypnodisc from Robot Wars, but in space. Hypnodisc in space.
What's that going back to? About 99?
Yeah.
2000? Yeah. The Hypnodisc? Yeah. It does uncannily like Hypnodisc. Or just a circular saw. Maybe as a last resort, the Shatari could use the Cobalt to get that spinning and then just chop into...
Oh, maybe I should buy one and magnetise it so the disc spins.
So you can spin it.
Should we do a house rules of an additional weapon that's like range 1 inch?
Mauler.
Why would it do better against heavy armour? That would do...
The opposite.
Yeah, some kind of like circular saw range 1 weapon.
Particle.
I don't think we're going to see this still. I would be very surprised. So should we go for our first ship that has a rating less than 3? Shaltari player, final choice?
Give it a 2.
2, it's a poor choice. Just take it if you want a bit of fun. And even then, you probably won't have that much fun with it. Because it won't commit much.
Broadly speaking, the Shaltari destroyers, I'm not particularly impressed by them. We went to Salute in London, and I bought a pack of UCM ones, and I didn't buy any Shaltari ones, because aesthetics and rules, nothing really.
And the changes have not convinced you.
No, I mean, it's good that they dropped the price a bit for the Cobalt, but I think what they should have done is put the price of the mothership up.
Yeah,
Not the Cobalt down. But it is what it is. Looking at all 4 factions as a whole, I think UCM did the best out of it. Probably PHR a second. They've got selection quality wise. Then Scourge, then Shaltari. If we rate them in order.
Based on our ratings, UCM have definitely done the best out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
to be fair, they need. I mean, UCM are. They're not terrible, but if you take in competitively, they always struggle a little bit.
Shaltari, like Scourge, have too many established choices, I feel,
Yeah.
for the destroyers to make much of a mark. I mean, the Mauler maybe is supposed to help you against heavy armor, but you've got particle.
Yeah, and the problem I have with Mauler is it's really good against the 2 factions which aren't the strongest factions, and it's so it's like
pound them into the ground even more.
Against Shaltari and Scourge, which are the 2 strongest factions. Yeah.
PHR can win, but only if they spam launch and echoes, which.
That Mauler will be good against Dreadnoughts once they start appearing.
Yeah, they're supposed to have.
That is true. So perhaps we'd bump up the Mercury further when Dreadnoughts arrive.
Yeah, I mean these rules could have been designed knowing what they were thinking with the Dreadnoughts.
Let's hope there's that level of planning behind it. Yeah.
Maybe we'll see a few rules tweaks as well that might make certain ships better and worse. So these become less. Some of them become less auto take, and some become better.
Yeah, and they're still working on the rules of the Centurion, obviously, because when they updated the rules for the destroyers, they also released new rules for the Centurion, which just merged the 2 profiles together. Cause I think it's getting too confusing having a PHR and a UCM profile.
That's certainly cleared things up a little bit. Yeah.
But the ship stats are pretty similar without going into detail, but it's just a bit cheaper. They've dropped the price again a bit, and that's it really.
Yeah, I think so. We'll put our ratings for destroyers up on this post when you see it on Facebook, or please comment and say if you agree with our decisions on the destroyers, and say if you think you've got your own arguments for what rating they should be. I think that's about it from us. So keep gaming, keep playing Drop Fleet. Get in contact with us if you have any questions or anything you want us to discuss. Hopefully, if we see you at UK Games Expo, please come and say hi. It's goodbye from me and Will.
It's goodbye from me.
And it's also bye from me.
Okay, you've been listening to Scanners Offline. Look out for our next episode. Happy wargaming.